World Theatre Day is a celebration of theatre in each of our lives. This year's global theme is Theatre and a Culture of Peace, and it couldn't be more relevant. Because when you really think about it, theatre isn't just about applause, it's about awareness. It isn't just about acting, it's about bringing in empathy, cultivating empathy with a character that you don't know. It shapes young minds, it softens hardened hearts, it can spark confidence in a shy school kid.
There is an entire field of emotional intelligence and a high-powered CEO would feel if they were to experience theatre. Theatre builds bridges within and between us as well. It helps children articulate their truth and it helps adults reconnect with it. It's one of the most powerful tools today we have for building mental resilience and healing from within. So, on the Breakfast Club this morning, we are moving beyond the stage. We're taking theatre beyond that and understanding how it's truly transforming lives, personalities, spaces, schools, corporates, homes, all of that.
All right, and to do this with us, today we actually have three guests who are joining us. And these are people who have lived, breathed, taught and transformed lives through theatre. So starting up first, we have Puneeta Roy. She's the Managing Trustee of the Yuva Ekta Foundation. She's worked with marginalized youth, children in conflict with the law, using theatre to nurture emotional intelligence and dignity.
Also with us is Rohit Ohri. He's the former chairman and CEO of FCB Group India, but he never lost connection with the stagecraft and believes theatre can really shape the soul of our leadership, work culture as well. It can help us understand that. Also with us is Lushin Dubey. She really needs no introduction, needs an entire book to identify her body of work. She's an actor, director, producer, educator, theatre icon and plays several roles. She's also crossed the border, lives in Edinburgh, also in the Fringe Festival at Howard University. She's teaching kids, she has solo shows, she also has her own theatre company, Theatre World and Kids World. So welcome all three of you to the Breakfast Club. This is such a fascinating chat because you know, when we think of theatre, we think of actors, production, stage, but we are talking about the stage of life. We are talking about how theatre is actually cultivating changes within us. And Rohit, can I start with you first? And understand why in the world of Excel sheets and presentations and P&Ls, theatre is playing such a good role today. Why are you such a proponent of it? And just for people joining us, Rohit is also part of this group of CXOs in Gurgaon. They meet once a month, very serious corporate honchos as they say, but these people sit in a room once a month and read plays.
How lovely.
So I want to understand why, Rohit.
So, you know, your two-part question. So I'll answer the first part. I think, you know, theatre has been part of my life, you know, from school days. So it's something that is always, and I consider it my secret superpower in the world of advertising, because for me, you know, what theatre has really done, it's like if you think about advertising and you think about theatre, at the heart of both is storytelling, right? So, you know, we're telling a story about a brand, we're telling a story about, you know, life and consumers. So in many ways, there's a deep connection there. And I think the way I look at it, that it's almost that every brief that we get, you know, from a client on you know, to create advertising is like a script, right? So in many ways, you're actually understanding what consumer you're actually talking to. So there's more than just, you know, seeing the consumer's profile on paper as, you know, education and, you know, socioeconomic classification. It's really about understanding the psyche and understanding what drives, motivates this consumer, and you're able to build deeper connections with consumers. So in many ways, I think, you know, advertising, theatre, I believe, you know, they're so interconnected, and perhaps, you know, in my life, I think, you know, theatre has really shaped the way, you know, I've you know, grown up in advertising. So in many ways, everything I do in terms of, you know, articulating what a brand promises, how a consumer is to be connected with, is really, kind of dictated by theater. And coming to your second question, which was really about why do corporate honchos, are reading theater scripts. Actually, the interesting part of that piece is that, most of us are so time, poor. So in many ways, it's very difficult for us to kind of commit to a long term, saying, okay, the next 3 months we're going to be rehearsing, and nobody's traveling, nobody's, you have the time to actually do that. So the play reading is actually a beautiful way to stay in touch with something that we all passionate and we love. And it's not really that difficult to do, because you get the script about a week ago, and you just read through the script and you're reading the script, right? So you stay connected with theater. It's a beautiful evening where you spend interacting or doing something you're passionate about, versus idle gossip, and it's the same thing all over again. But this is something we truly love, and it's a deeply enriching experience.
Creative, constructive use of time is kind of what it sounds like. Really constructive is the key there. Let's go over very quickly to Puneeta. Puneeta, if we could just ask you, one of the things that you do is you work extensively with children who are in conflict with the law. I just want to understand from you, what happens when you take theatre to young children who may not believe that they actually belong on stage? What's that transformation that you observe?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on. So, as Rohit said, the heart of theatre is storytelling. And I also came from, school, college, Barry John, tag, the conventional thing of picking up scripts and actually, having actors come in and fit into those roles. But, it was, I think, my introduction to the theatre of the absurd that actually shook me and got me to understand that it can be a very deep dialogue within, right?
Can I ask you to just explain to our audiences what Samuel Beckett Theatre of the Absurd actually is, just so we have that context?
Well, that's the theatre of the absurd. I mean, his Waiting for Godot was the masterpiece. It's a masterclass of really, it's exploring what, your internal dialogue. I mean, when you read the play or you watch the play, you're wondering what is this nonsense flying around, but it's leading to something. So it's breaking your conventional norms of, earlier we had Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. There was a graph, that a play normally took. This kind of really shook and, defied all those conventions. Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on that. I want to actually get to the question.
Yeah.
So the other thing was that, when I was actually, around 40, I really, I was a filmmaker. I wanted to hang up my boots and say, I want to work with young people. So started working in schools, but for me, theatre was a platform of social justice and social equity. So when we worked in schools, we would always create a platform where you had privileged kids coming in. So you had Sriram, Vasant Valley, etc. But we would get kids from a Salam Balak, an NGO that works with street kids. And together, get them to articulate their realities, their stories. We never had a pre-scripted play that they had to then audition for. Auditions was completely, so then in an audition, it's competitive. Am I good enough? That one's better. Here, you're actually getting a group that the NGO, the school, they sign up for the experience. It's a 1-month process. And then we start actually getting them to talk about themes that are of relevance to them, right? And today, a lot of it is about boundaries, safe spaces, gender identity, gender justice, etc., etc. So when we were working in these schools, I was actually invited by Justice Madan Lukul, who's an ex-Supreme Court judge who worked in juvenile justice, to say that would I work with a group of young people who are completely invisible, and who are totally, society has rejected them. And I was surprised because I've worked with street kids and I feel people are empathetic to street children. Then he introduced me to what we call them as young offenders. People call them as juvenile delinquents. I've actually co-authored a book with Inakshi Ganguly and Kalpana Purushottam to say that juvenile, not delinquent. It's not another name. It's not an acronym, juvenile and delinquents. So anyway, so he took me to a remand home in North Delhi, in Kingsway Camp. And when I walked into that home with the boys, honestly, I didn't see them any different from the other kids I worked with. So now it's been about 15 years from my first visit. I now run a foundation called the Yuva Ekta Foundation, and we are really passionately involved with, we call it expressive art therapy. Theatre is an important component of it. And here you're getting the boys to start speaking. Boys who have been told that tum nikamme ho, tum bevkufu, I mean, you're useless, foolish, you'll never do anything with your lives. Reaching out to them with respect, giving them dignity and saying, please share with us, and not what you went through. We never get into what the case is. And believe me, these boys are in for heinous crime. I'm not going to go further into what heinous crime
Yeah,
is.
sure.
Yeah. So to get them to start then, I mean, we give them a topic, a theme, I mean, some very interesting things about gender roles in their home. And again, no judgment, just to start talking. Start talking, sharing. Through those sessions, we then start getting a script together from their own stories. And they start fitting in. They're not playing other characters, they're playing themselves, or maybe characters in their homes that they're familiar with.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
And in that expression,
Incredible work, Puneeta, and it really tells you the beauty of the craft and how it can not just shape, like Rohit was saying, your boardrooms, but shape society at large. These are the people who will go on in the streets, and these are the people. Sounds like episode 3 of Adolescence to me, but I'm going to hold my horses on that one. Lushin has been patiently waiting, and she has done both of these things. She deals with corporates, she deals with students, she is a first-class actor and has academies, etc. of her own. When you look at the power of theatre today, when you see its reach that it's made, I remember you telling me that you now deal with management students who take up theatre as a subject because it brings them closer to their own realities. Do you have an example, like an experience that you can share with us to give us an insight into these sessions?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing children's theatre, as many know, for the past 32 years. I'm quite a fossil. I got into it when I was quite young. And I started working with corporates and with the business school, SOIL, School of Inspired Leadership, 15 years back. I've been teaching for 15 years, an intense course, which is literally 7 days. It starts very early in the morning, ends late in the evening. And what do I do in this? Who are the kind of people who come, and what do we actually do? These are basically students, they're anywhere from 75 to 100 to 120. I deal with this whole lot at one go. They're basically engineers and lawyers, most of them. 90 to 95% are engineers, many of them from South India. Many of them enter the classroom the first day, buried in their laptops, very, very anxious about the job that they have to get, the exams they have to complete before they get into the job hunting market. So as soon as they enter through that door, the first question I ask them is, do you feel that you're coming into studying and looking at a subject that is like, French fries compared to a steak or compared to a good tandoori chicken? And many of them look up and nod because they would rather be buried in their laptops than be doing something like theater. What is theater? Many don't even know what theater is. And so I start with, breaking the ice by telling them, I know this. I know you guys come here with this kind of feeling that what is this and what are we going to achieve? But believe me, at the end of 7 days, when you give a performance for the whole school, for the management school, you'll perform at the end of it, you'll know what you have gained. I don't need to tell you. So my 3 pegs of theater learning for them are, one, through all my years and experience of being a producer, director, a script writer, actor myself, the one thing that I feel one has to get very close to in theater is to dispense with the misnomer of the word acting. It is feeling. It is feeling. It is what happens within you, your soul, because each one of us is locked. Each one of us has fears. Each one of us, what does one fear? One fears judgment. We are always conscious of judgment. If you ask yourself, how I look, what does the person think of me? Am I speaking correctly? Have I said the right thing? Has somebody, reacted this way? So you're constantly, you are locked. So what does theater do? It really unlocks all this. It puts you on the peg where you finally, so first is, of course, realizing it is not acting, it's a misnomer, it is feeling. And it's very difficult, mind you, to constantly be in touch with your inner feeling, because you tend to sort of slip into performance. The minute you slip into performance, you actually are pulling yourself away from the reality, the truism. All right? Second is that they must go to a place where they become fearless. Third is to dispense with the fear of judgment. All this, provided you don't hurt anybody. Yeah? These are the 3 basic pegs. When you start feeling that you are really not toe dipping, you're knee dipping, you are immersing, you're actually absolutely embraced by all this. That is these 3 things that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you feel that, you get very impassioned about a subject like theater. You feel that, this is a part of you. So it's a real challenge to work at the management school with the management school students who come in, like I said, full of apprehension, trepidation about a subject like this. And then to tell them that, look, don't worry, you're going to experience something. At the end of it, you're going to share what you have experienced. We are going to create something. You are going to present it to an audience. And of course, as we go through the whole journey, we go through first honing in all the skills. Then we take, which are to do with diction, with voice, with give and take, natural give and take. I mean, while I'm talking to you, some of you are nodding, some of you are doing this, one of you may be smiling. That's the natural give and take. So that natural give and take, getting into mastering that in a very organic way, right? With diction in place, with clarity in place, with clarity of thinking in place, with joy, with happiness, with compassion, with team spirit. All these things happen when you go through all those skills, you go through those exercises, you go through games.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had students who come in who are very, very shy.
The theater of life. I think that would have been a very apt
theater of life,
theater
right?
of life. That would have been a very apt sort of way to do this. And it just brings me back. This is so funny. It's just coming to me right now that one of my grandmothers got diagnosed with cancer, and during her treatment, she started doing theater. And I had almost forgotten how beautifully it helped her. She came out of it so nicely. And though nobody puts a finger to it, I understand now that it must have played a role. But I know Toya had a question.
No, I was just going to say, Lushin, to your point a little earlier, I wonder, are kids, because you've worked with all 3 stages of people, kids, adolescents and adults, are kids more in access with this part of themselves? Do you find that adults have a more constricted time approaching that side of themselves? They take longer to open up? Because I feel like that would be the case.
You see, with kids, the beauty with kids is that they come in carte blanche. They come in with no apprehensions, many of them. They come in with an open slate. You put them, I mean, you're showing these huge musicals that I've done and, directed, where very often I put little kids with middle school kids with adults, and sort of there is a medley of age groups, there's a medley of where they come from, their upbringing. Some speak only Hindi, some speaking English, some speak English. Sort of the guide has to be somebody who really is like a mother, all right, with children. Because the first thing children fear is they're scared, okay? So they're scared. So you have to dispense with that. So there's this very motherly kind of embracing feeling that the guide has to have, somebody like me, for instance. And many of these children who come, the difference between adults and children, I think, is that the children actually have lesser egos. So they come in without knowing what they have. Some of them are diamonds. I mean, you look at them and you say, my God, this kid would give an adult a run for their money. And this, I'm talking about children who are just innately, who just intrinsically just feel it. You don't even have to teach them something like acting because they just feel it.
Can I pick on that very quickly and ask Rohit a question? Rohit, I've heard of this context that there is a split personality and there's a stage personality. I know of so many people who come and say that when they go on stage, something happens to them, something unlocks from within. And I've seen and heard of very shy people who go on stage and are just the biggest sunshine on the planet. Have you experienced something like that? I'm imagining a room full of corporates who are very, very strict and this Booba, Narayan Murthy sort of personality in office, but come to the reading and say, oh my God, this is, I should like let it go a little more.
Yeah, this I've seen this happen. Actually, it's happened to me as well, right? So we do something called a supper theater in Gurgaon, which is essentially murder over dinner. And what happens is that we invite a set of people, maybe about 100 people, to this play where the audience is not really the audience in the typical sense. They're part of the play as well, right? So it's scripted in a way that a character is sitting at every table, and then the play actually unfolds over a dinner, etc., etc. And at this particular piece, a lot of people from my office had come, and they were thinking it's going to be, they're going to see me in pretty much the way they see me in office, right? So, and I was playing a politician who spoke with his mouth full of pan, and he had this very sleazy side to him, and it was incredible actually, because after the show, I went out and I changed and I came back in, and these two girls were standing there. They said, that politician guy, I mean, I don't see him here. So, and I said, well, it's me. So they said, oh, you speak English. I said, yeah, I do speak English. And they said, oh, so the thing of, when you play a character, and I think a lot of it was what Lushin was saying as well, is you get so immersed in the character, the way the character actually is, and how that character behaves. So the whole thing of when you lose that acting and you kind of identify with the character in a way. And my wife always says, she's most surprised that I identify with these completely different characters who have no connection with what I am actually as an individual. It's just that I find it's like a beautiful escape, that you're into someone else's life, you're in playing somebody else who's completely unlike you. And I love that, because it's such a it's almost like you could live many lives in one life, right? So that's the beauty of I think
I think
what
that's
theatre
absolutely beautiful, and I wish we had more time. I don't want this conversation to end, but perhaps we'll take it forward more. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us and sharing your perspective, and thank you so much for doing what you do. And Toya, we've got to go to a class now.
Yeah,
I'm
this has
really
been really
kicked and
incredible.
pumped. I think the
Yeah.
entire TBC team should go out and just do a class. Maybe
And
we'll ask.
feel. I thought that was
Yeah.
so beautiful. The
Yeah.
theatre is for
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to